Presidential Activity, June 2020. Meetings of the President of the Republic with government officials. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met on Tuesday, the 2nd of June 2020, with the Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli and Governor of the Central Bank Tariq Amir, and directed during the meeting to continue to take all measures that improve economic indicators and effect coordination between all concerned state agencies to continue efforts to contain the economic repercussions of the spread of the new coronavirus. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met on Wednesday, the 3rd of June 2020, with the head of the Engineering Authority of the Armed Forces, Major General of Staff Ihab El-Far, and a number of senior officials of the authority. The meeting dealt with a review of the structural and engineering situation for a number of engineering authority projects in the new administrative capital, especially the Egyptian Islamic Cultural Center, the Misr Mosque, and the Memorial. And the President directed to continue working in the new administrative capital according to the approved structural and temporal planning, with full commitment to all precautionary health measures. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met on Sunday, the 7th of June 2020, with the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Dr. Mohammed Maït, to follow up the efforts of the Ministry of Finance to develop and automate the tax system, especially with regard to settling tax disputes with financiers and the application of electronic collection mechanisms at the level of the Republic. And the President directed to intensify the ongoing efforts to develop the tax system by extending the application of advanced automation and electronic systems. During his meeting on Monday, the 8th of June 2020, with the Prime Minister, Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, and Minister of Trade and Industry, Naveen Gama, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi directed to continue efforts to achieve settlement of industry, as well as providing a supportive environment for the heavy national industry sector, particularly the cement, iron, and steel industry, for their important role in the advancement of the national economy.
اجتمع السيد الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي مع الدكتور مصطفى مدبولي رئيس مجلس الوزراء والسيد محمد معيط وزير المالية. صرح المتحدث الرسمي باسم رئاسة الجمهورية السفير بسام راضي بأن الاجتماع تناول متابعة جهود وزارة المالية لتطوير وميكنة مصلحة الضرائب، خاصة ما يتعلق بإنهاء
اجتمع السيد الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي مع الدكتور مصطفى مدبولي رئيس مجلس الوزراء والسيدة نيفين جامع وزيرة التجارة والصناعة وذلك بحضور اللواء
استقبل السيد الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي الفريق أول محمد زكي القائد العام للقوات المسلحة وزير الدفاع والإنتاج الحربي.
اجتمع السيد الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي مع الدكتور مصطفى مدبولي.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met on the 22nd of June 2020 with the Prime Minister, Minister of Supply and Internal Trade, Dr. Ali al-Musalhi, and the meeting discussed following up the situation with regard to the strategic stock of basic food commodities and the government's efforts to provide them to citizens. The President directed to extend the mechanization of the supply system to contribute to providing services to citizens quickly and efficiently. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met on the 24th of June 2020 with the Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli and a number of ministers and senior officials. During the meeting, the President was briefed on the developments of the Nahda Dam file, where the current situation was reviewed, taking into account the Egyptian determinants and constants in this regard. In this context, the President directed continuing the moves at various levels to preserve Egypt's water rights for the benefit of present and future generations. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met on the 27th of June 2020 with the head of the Engineering Authority of the Armed Forces, Major General of Staff Ihab El-Far, and a number of officials. The meeting discussed the efforts of the Engineering Authority in a number of national projects at the level of the Republic, especially the new road and hubs network in Cairo Governorate. In this context, the President directed taking into consideration the provision of all services to citizens and road users on both sides of the road, with the various main axes being developed and those already completed. During his meeting on the 28th of June 2020 with the Prime Minister and Minister of Education and Technical Education, Dr. Tariq Shawqi, President el-Sisi directed the utmost importance to intellectual and educational building among students, including raising awareness of the correct understanding of the principles and teachings of religions and what they call for freedom of belief, tolerance, and acceptance of difference. The meeting dealt with following up the efforts of the Ministry of Education with regard to a comprehensive and integrated modernization of the basic education system in its various stages. Field trips of the President of the Republic. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi on the 12th of June 2020 inspected Al-Asmarat 3 housing project in Al-Muqattam, which was constructed to transport and accommodate families and residents from slums and dangerous areas within a modern residential complex that provides them with a new societal reality in which all residential and community services are integrated. The President also inspected new road and access projects that are under construction in East Cairo. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi visited the combat units in the Western region on the 20th of June 2020 to check on the high combat status of the armed forces, and the President called on the Egyptian armed forces to prepare to carry out any tasks inside or outside the country if necessary, praising the combat situation and the high capabilities that the Egyptian army enjoys, being one of the strongest armies in the region. President Sisi visited the elements of the Western Military Region in Sidi Barani, Marsa Matruh. The President made a speech in which he expressed his pride of the high combat readiness he had seen from the forces and his pride of the great people of Egypt, of the qualifications, preparation, and possession of our advanced armed forces that made them able to fulfill the implementation of any tasks assigned to them. He also inspected the executive and construction situation for the new city of Al Alamein. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi opened on the 29th of June 2020 the group of East Cairo development projects, the Baroun Palace after its restoration, as well as the International Capital and Sphinx airports via video conference, in line with Egypt's celebrations of the 30th of June revolution. Participation of the President of the Republic in the Global Vaccine Summit via electronic means of communication. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi participated in the Global Vaccine Summit via electronic means of communication hosted by the United Kingdom at the level of heads of state and government and with the participation of a number of foreign and health ministers. The summit is intended to mobilize the financial resources necessary to provide vaccines to developing countries and rebuild the Global Alliance for Vaccines of stocks of vaccines for the next 5 years, which will contribute to maintaining the health of 800 million children around the world. In his speech, the President stated that the summit comes at a vital time in light of the spread of the coronavirus, which demonstrated the world's need for solidarity and work quickly to limit the spread of the disease and the search for effective vaccinations, provided that it is fairly available for everyone, especially that protecting people from these epidemics is the responsibility of the whole world. The President also indicated that Egypt is following up the ongoing experiments of arriving at a corona vaccine and scientific cooperation in this regard through the Egyptian research authorities.
اجتمع السيد الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي مع الدكتور مصطفى مدبولي رئيس مجلس الوزراء والدكتور علي المصلحي وزير التموين وزير التجارة الداخلية. وصرح المتحدث الرسمي باسم رئاسة الجمهورية بأن الاجتماع تناول متابعة الموقف بالنسبة للمخزون الاستراتيجي من السلع التموينية الأساسية.
Participation of the President of the Republic in the extraordinary summit to promote China-Africa solidarity in fighting the corona pandemic.
اجتمع السيد الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي مع الدكتور مصطفى مدبولي رئيس مجلس الوزراء وكل من السادة وزراء الدفاع والإنتاج الحربي والخارجية والموارد المائية والعدل والمالية والداخلية بالإضافة إلى السيد رئيس المخابرات العامة والسيد رئيس هيئة الرقابة الإدارية. صرح المتحدث الرسمي باسم رئاسة الجمهورية السفير بسام راضي بأن السيد الرئيس اطلع خلال الاجتماع على تطورات
Participation of the President of the Republic in the African Mini-Summit on Nahda Dam. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi participated in the mini-summit of the heads of state of the African Union Presidency Office via video conference to discuss the Nahda Dam issue, headed by President of the Republic of South Africa and the current President of the Union, Cyril Ramaphosa. President el-Sisi made a speech during which he stressed that Egypt is open with a sincere desire to reach a fair and balanced agreement on Nahda Dam in a way that enables Ethiopia to achieve the economic development that it aspires to and increase its capabilities to generate the electricity it needs, taking into account the interests of the downstream countries of Egypt and Sudan and not to create harm to their water rights. At the end of the summit, it was agreed to form a governmental committee of legal and technical experts from the three countries, Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia, as well as African countries that are members of the Presidency of the African Union, as well as representatives of international bodies monitoring the negotiation process, with the aim of completing the final legal agreement binding to all parties regarding the rules for filling and operating Nahda Dam while refraining from taking any unilateral actions. The President's receptions of foreign officials.
اجتمع السيد الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي مع الدكتور مصطفى مدبولي رئيس مجلس الوزراء والدكتور طارق شوقي وزير التربية والتعليم الفني بحضور اللواء محمد أمين مستشار رئيس الجمهورية للشؤون المالية.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, during his reception on June 18, 2020, the Greek Foreign Minister Nikos Dundas emphasized the strategic bilateral relations with Greece and Egypt's keenness to enhance joint cooperation between the two countries at various levels, as well as within the framework of the tripartite mechanism with Cyprus. The meeting witnessed the exchange of visions and views on regional files of common concern, in light of the consistency of common interests and stances between the two countries in the Eastern Mediterranean region. Telephone calls of the President of the Republic. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi received on the 3rd of June 2020 a phone call from President of the Czech Republic, Milos Zeman, who stressed his country's keenness and the countries of the Visegrad Group to continue working to develop their relations with Egypt and push them to broader horizons, and invited President el-Sisi to visit the Czech Republic just after the corona pandemic had receded. For his part, President el-Sisi expressed his aspiration for the continuation of coordination with the Czech president, and the contact discussed ways to coordinate joint efforts and exchange experiences between the two countries on combating the spread of the new coronavirus. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi received on Sunday, the 7th of June 2020, a phone call from the Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte, and the contact discussed the developments of the Libyan issue in the light of the recent developments. The contact also discussed some topics of bilateral relations, especially in the commercial, military, and energy fields. On the 8th of June 2020, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi held a telephone call with the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and they touched on exchanging views on the developments of the Libyan issue in the light of the Egyptian sponsorship of the Cairo Declaration Initiative, where the German Chancellor welcomed the initiative and considered it as an extension of the Berlin Conference path by adding elements and effective new dimensions to the Libyan political process, praising the Egyptian constructive efforts to settle the Libyan crisis, and they also reviewed ways to enhance bilateral relations. On June 13, 2020, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi received a phone call from the President of the Republic of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa. The two presidents discussed the current developments of the Libyan issue and joint African efforts to settle it within the framework of the Cairo Declaration Initiative, as well as reviewing the current negotiating position on Nahda Dam file. The contact also touched on exchanging views on the current position of the Nahda Dam file and the related tripartite negotiations, as well as the prospects for bilateral cooperation between Egypt and South Africa in various fields. On June 16, 2020, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi received a phone call from King of Bahrain, Hamad bin Isa, and the contact touched on a number of topics of bilateral cooperation in several fields within the framework of strategic relations between the two brotherly countries. They reviewed a number of regional files of common concern, and the Libyan issue was also discussed in light of the launch of the Cairo Declaration Initiative on a comprehensive political settlement, where the Bahraini king affirmed his support for the initiative aimed at achieving security and stability in Libya. On June 24, 2020, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi received a phone call from the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, during which they discussed ways to advance bilateral relations, especially at the economic and industrial levels, in the light of the Egyptian efforts to attract foreign investments and the opportunities provided by the major development projects underway. The contact witnessed a review of the opportunities available to enhance cooperation in the field of university education to benefit from the Canadian educational systems, and discussed efforts to contain the repercussions of the spread of the new corona pandemic, especially at the economic, social, and health levels.